Hey guys, Stealth here. Welcome to the War Room. Today's War Room, I wanted to talk about the pains of switching internet providers. Oh my god. I know it's a terrible way to start out a Monday, but the past couple of weeks I have been awaiting the new install package for a different internet provider. Now, there aren't that many options that I have to pick from. Basically, it's a monopoly here in the country in the Netherlands, so you don't really have that much choice as far as internet providers goes. You have basically two options. One is that you're going to go through cable, which is the same that your TV uses. The alternative is to use the phone lines. Now, phone lines is copper wire, so it's going to be a bit slower, but I thought, hey, these guys have a decent offer. So I first phoned up my cable company or my current internet provider, and I said, look, guys, I've been a pretty long time customer with you, and by the way, this is a technique that you can use as well. I phoned them up and I said, hey, I've been a customer for quite a while and I would love to stay, but these guys just have a better offer. Can you arrange anything? Can you do anything? They said, well, yeah, we can give you a couple dozen euro off. So I thought, well, it's a start. But I was saving about 250 euros a year on the different providers. So I said, well, look, this is what I'm saving. How much can you offer? They said, well, that's not really something I can do. So I said, okay, I understand, perfectly fine, but then I'm going to go ahead and cancel. So that's what I did. The thing is that the other provider is a bit slower, and, well, it still includes TV, but honestly, I rarely, if ever, watch TV. The only time when I switch on the TV is when some sort of disaster has happened and I want a bit of info on that. Other times, not so much. So I switched internet providers, I got the new kit, and I was setting that up Friday, which was actually quite interesting because I thought, well, if this doesn't work, and if this is going to be very, very slow, then I'm going to have a problem with Rookie Night. Luckily, my other provider is still active, which is a whole other discussion. But I plugged in the new router, connected it to my computer, and I got the fantastic speed of 2 megabits per second. Now, note 2 megabit, which means that I got a download speed of about, 200 kilobytes per second. Yeah, they were offering 100 megabits per second, and this is pretty much what I'm used to. My current provider is providing speed at 150 mbit, so I'm getting download speeds usually in Steam of about 18 megabytes per second, and I know that for some people that is huge. That is a very, very high speed, but to be honest, I just have grown accustomed to it. Anyway, phoned up the other company, the new provider, and they said, yeah, here's the thing. Your cable is probably too long. And apparently, copper wire starts to lose signal strength quite fast. So I said, okay, so what am I going to do about it? They said, well, okay, go to the main entry point where the cable first enters your house and then hook up the modem there. So I did, and I got 40 megabit per second. That's 5 megabyte per second, so it's not bad, but it's still less than half of what they promised. So they said, okay, look, I know it sucks, but we're going to send you a new cable, and hopefully that's going to fix it. So that's something that I'm waiting on now. In the meanwhile, I hadn't received a confirmation of termination of the other contract, so I phoned the existing provider and I said, hey, I still haven't gotten confirmation. They said, yeah, here's the thing. We have been getting a cancellation from the other subscriber or from the other provider, but not so much. It's just for one service, just for phone, not for internet, not for TV, etc. So I thought, oh, fantastic. So that's what I'm struggling through now. Now, what you can take away from this is either be very, very sure that you do want to switch internet providers because it is a total pain in the ass. And if you do want to stay with your internet provider and you want to negotiate your rates down, you can. And it's actually pretty easy to do. Usually, internet providers have a sort of entry rate for new clients. It's their way to get new customers into their fold. And this is something that is usually a bit better than what existing clients are getting. So what you can do is just phone them and say, hey, I've been an existing client for X amount of years, and here's the thing. Times are tough. It's expensive. I do want to stay with you, but this other provider just has a better rate. Is there anything that you can do to make it better? Or to just make it a bit cheaper, offer some additional services at the same price or whatever, so I can still stay with you? Because that's what I would ultimately like to do, because just switching is a lot of a hassle. And usually these service reps or sales reps are actually allowed to give you some sort of discount. To give you an idea, the discount I got was, I believe, 90 euros that was offered at max. Now, it's still not as much as switching to the other provider, but even if you can, let's say, earn 90 bucks or save 90 bucks with one phone call, then I would definitely take it. The thing is, as mentioned, I got more services, better services, and at a cheaper rate at the other provider, so I'm still going to switch. But if you have a couple of moments free this week, it's always worth a try to just phone up any of your service providers and say, look, this is what I want to do, this is how I want to proceed, and what can you offer? Something else that I have been doing, as mentioned, this last week was, of course, Rookie Night. Now, I got on way too late on my server. Normally I am setting up these things well in advance, but this time around I was just way too late. And the stream started at 8 PM my time. I got on my own TeamSpeak at, I think, 10 minutes before the stream was supposed to start, maybe even less. So, a bit of a terrible host. But I was surprised at how many of you have showed up. The TeamSpeak was at capacity, which for me was 50 out of 50 slots. And I upgraded it to 75 so we could have a few more people in the TS. And it was needed because there was a lot of activity in the TS. A lot of people, a lot of guys who wanted to improve their gameplay. We definitely had fun, and I again want to do a big shout out to all the trainers and all the organizers who helped me get this thing on the rails. Because it's taking more management than you might expect. And so far I've seen nothing but positive feedback. Now I'm not sure when the next Rookie Night is going to be, possibly sometime in August, but of course I will let you know about those things in time, usually a week in advance so you can schedule it in your calendar. Definitely had a lot of fun, a lot of mistakes were made, skills were boosted, and of course that is the whole point. Get the veterans to share what the rookies really need to know about. And of course, there really aren't too many of these events. I think that Eugen should be organizing these sorts of events on their own, because really, Wargame is a tough game, and for some reason they're not actually doing that much to help out the newer guys. Something else that I wanted to discuss with you, something that I read in a book. It's a book that is called The Achievement Habit, written by Bernard Roth, and he's speaking about reframing. Now, reframing, if you're not familiar with the term, is looking at something in a different way. He says, once we are aware of a problem, we tend to plunge ahead in search of a solution, yet often we do better to first reconsider the question. This is also applicable not just to life improvement stuff, but also to Wargame. Always try to reframe a solution, try to reframe a problem. Because, for example, over here, if this area is heavily contested with infantry, then you could say, well, I need to go in there with my own infantry. I need to kill all of these guys. Reframing would be, do you? Do you really need to kill them? Is it not easier to conquer this zone by just going around through this tree line? Because, let's face it, there are just 2 tanks and nothing else, and it would take them a while to get over. Anyway, that's reframing. And there was a very, very interesting story that he shared about the whole reframing stuff. He said, reframing can also be useful in making improvements after a solution has already been found. Doug Dietz is a long-time designer of medical diagnostic equipment at GE Healthcare. He's had a life-changing experience when he went to a local clinic that used an MRI machine that he had designed. He introduced himself to a technologist and she told him how highly regarded his machine was, and he felt 10 feet tall. I mean, If the hospital staff tells you that your device is doing a fantastic job, then of course that's what you want to hear. Then a family appeared and trying their best to calm a screaming child. As soon as the young girl was exposed to the scary room, strangers, and a huge MRI scanner, she broke into tears and had to be sedated to hold still for the exam. Because of course, in those MRI machines you have to be really, really still or you're going to get distorted readings. Doug had no idea children were being sedated as a matter of course. When he found out that close to 85% of the children between 3 and 8 of age had to be sedated, he felt like a failure. Because, let's face it, he has this device, and it's supposed to make life easier. It's supposed to be a less invasive way of seeing what's going on in someone's body. And instead of making life easier, these children are absolutely terrified. So, continuing, shortly thereafter, while participating in a 3-day intense executive education workshop at the designer school, Doug got an insight about a shortcoming in his design process. He realized that although he had consulted widely with customer engineers, marketing people, salespeople, technologists, and doctors, he had actually never spent much time with the families and the young patients in need of the equipment he had designed. When Doug went back to work, he consulted hospital, child life specialists, child psychologists, teachers, parents, and children. He enlisted staff from a children's museum. They spent time with the kids and the parents. He organized an advisory team of children who had undergone a lot of health treatments. And working with the Children's Museum and the children, he designed a series of MRI experiences he called Adventure Series. The Adventure Series reframes the MRI experience as an adventure and not a medical procedure. Doug did this by having the rooms, floors, and MRI machines redecorated. He also developed coloring books to explain the procedure for the child at home the night before. One adventure was going away to camp and being in a tent where you could lie very still on a sleeping bag, which would be the MRI table, and you could see the stars. Another one was being in a ship, lying very still, hiding from pirates. So he's reframing this whole experience. Instead of these kids being totally terrified, he is trying to reframe it into a more interesting, less scary experience. And to finish it off, he's saying reframing the situation from a medical procedure into an adventure was a huge success. The child sedation rate dropped to almost nothing, so these kids no longer had to be sedated. Apart from the savings in time and cost, there was a notable positive difference in the experience for the children and their families. Doug reported that after their MRI examination, some children would ask their mothers when they could return to have another adventure. So, whereas initially these kids are scared out of their minds, they are now asking, when can we go back? So this is a perfect example of reframing. The device was exactly the same, only the user experience was different. So, the principle that we're trying to drive home here, that I'm trying to share with you guys, when thinking about how to achieve your goal, don't simply charge ahead. Especially this is critical in Wargame. Don't just keep charging into a wall of forces if you have a better solution. Pause and think about what the problem really is. Go to a higher level and consider what else might be at the heart of the problem. Now reframe it. Change your point of view and then change it again and see where you are. The real problem will reveal itself to you. Now, again, I'm translating it to Wargame. Let's have a look at this situation in the middle. A lot of smokescreen, a bit of blue for infantry. But do you really need to get all of this infantry out of the way? Because let's assume that most of the blue for infantry forces are actually over here. Do you really need to go through all of those? Is that really what's required? Or could you just take a bunch of helicopters and fly through here, attack them from the side, try to get the CV, carry on to center and do it like that? Or could you take a recon vehicle or a recon group inside a vehicle and get those guys all the way around the map, spotting center? Again, reframe the solution. Try to think of different solutions other than simply butting your head or your infantry against a line of tanks or your head against a wall, because it's just going to take a lot of effort, a lot of bruising, usually in both parts, especially in Wargame. And it is not really going to get you those results that you're looking for, and at least not in any kind of effective, efficient way. So that's reframing. Now again, I do recommend the book. It's called The Achievement Habit by Bernard Roth. It's written in a very, very interesting, very practical way, so you can actually do stuff with it. Now, other stuff, I don't really have that much going on, to be honest. It's the summer over here. It's bloody warm. As someone wrote for, I think it was Great Britain, thank you, summer has arrived, but please make sure it doesn't all arrive at the same time. And that's pretty much the same situation here for the Netherlands, where it's just getting bloody hot. We're always asking for summer, for better weather, and when it finally arrives, we start bitching and moaning if it could please get a little less hot. And again, probably compared to some of you guys, the temperature that we're having here is still really, really low at about 26 to 28 degrees Celsius. A little bit of an update about the Israel DLC pack for Wargame. Earlier I mentioned that it might be towards the end of the year, but I have been hearing whispers that it's going to be far less distant than we might expect. One of the guys that I know is involved with the Eugen team. He's advising them on what units should be in, how they should be armed, their tactics, etc. And while of course he cannot entirely keep me up to date, he can, to some extent, give me small-ish updates on what is going on and what we need to be, or what we can reliably expect. So hopefully that DLC will not take too much longer, but we'll just have to wait and see. It's going to be here eventually. That's all I have for this week's War Room. Again, thank you all for showing up for Rookie Night. If you haven't been able to show up, there is 2 replays from the games that I coached, as well as a deck guide replay. Thanks to all the trainers for making it possible to help all of the new guys. Good luck this week. Try and reframe some stuff in Wargame if at all possible, to make it easier to win games, and of course also try to apply this stuff to life as a greater whole, so you can get more effect there as well. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a good week, and I'll see you soon for more Wargame, XCOM, and World of Warships content.